Welcome back to part 2 of creating a console enclosure based on the services from SKAARHOJ in Germany, and they are delivering all the aluminum that we use for our consoles. I already walked you through how the front plate of such a console enclosure has to be created from numbers in a spreadsheet we have, and I'm now going to talk about the remaining sides of this enclosure. So if you look at this page, just to recap what we are dealing with, the front plate is really this part, and this has already been discussed. So now I would just like to shortly mention that we also have the front, we have the back side over here, and we also have a bottom plate, which is not shown on any of these photos. And then, of course, we have the sides, this side and the other side. So there are numbers for those as well. And where we left off in part 1 is that we had this front plate created based on numbers that would give us an enclosure with a visible area, a part which is 200 millimeters wide and 100 millimeters high. Now, if you scroll down in this spreadsheet, we see that we have similar numbers for the front side and for the back side. And if we look at the files available to us from the enclosure folder that we downloaded from GitHub with the C30 used as our offset, we could open the front side. And you see this plate for the front side, and similarly for the back side it will look like this. And in those two cases we don't have any other components than just the cavities for making them fit into the housing profiles. This is called a housing profile. We have 4 of those, here, here, and here. And the front and the back needs to fit into those. This is why we have the cavities, just like the top plate. So there's not much more to say about that. Now, interestingly, the bottom is a bit different, because to make this tilted console, we need to do a little bit of bending. And it could be helpful to maybe draw a little bit for you how this is supposed to work. Okay, so basically we had the top plate looking more or less like this with the cavities, and then we had the back side looks like this, the front side looks like this, and then for each of these we have the housing profile. The housing profile was 16 millimeters in each direction here, and it goes more or less like this, a piece of aluminum that will grab around here like that. Okay, and then we have the same over here, and we have the same here, and we have the same here. So the reason why this becomes a slanted enclosure is that when it's put on the green here is really a level table. So then everything is tilted a little bit. So how do we create the bottom part? And maybe we need to just draw this a little bit more like it really is. Well, the bottom part is really made like this. It goes out a little bit, and then it makes a bend, goes in a straight line down here, and then it bends a little bit here. So there are 2 places where we have a bend. This is where it bends, and this is where it bends, depending on what the angle of the whole thing actually is. And this angle is calculated from the spreadsheet. So maybe you remember we had this angle here, so you know the angle was calculated for us here based on the height of the front and the back sides. But looking at what we need to do for the bottom plate, which is mentioned down here, and let's take a look at the bottom plate in front design. We see that we have a cavity. We have a cavity here. We have a cavity here, and then there's an extra little cavity right here. And so now you can see there are two cavities to choose between, and if we choose the small one, you see that the depth of this cavity is 1.75 millimeters in a plate which is 2.5 millimeters. So essentially we have 0.75 millimeters thickness of the material right there. The other cavity is less deep, it's only 1 millimeter deep, leaving 1.5 millimeters for the housing profiles. So the small cavity serves the purpose of being our folding edge, and this allows us to actually fold this, to fold those parts, to make this bent. We can make this bent because the plate is, it looks basically like this when it comes from the factory. And then it goes down a little bit, and then it goes up to the full width of the front panel. So we can make the bend right there using a little bit of tools, but not much else. And this is what you're going to do in a tool bench on a workshop somewhere. When you get this plate back from the factory, you need to bend those edges to match the angle that is required for the whole thing to fit together.